I light this chalice. I light this chalice with these words. Open our eyes to see what is beautiful. Open our minds to learn what is true. Open our hearts to love one another. Please join me in the affirmation of covenant, which you will find printed in the service, saying,
Love is the doctrine of this church. Quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humankind in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other. The Reverend Dr. Chris Jones, you've probably seen in your program, is a graduate of Morehouse College, where he has got a degree in physics and math. And then he went on to MIT to get two master's degree, not one, two, one in technology and policy, and another in nuclear engineering. And he kept going, and he got a PhD in urban planning. So, and being an ordained minister, I think you can see why we invited him here today. And as you are all aware, and I can't really tell you why, but he's got a very, very busy schedule. And and he is not going to be able to stay and join us for coffee. He's got another event to go to, and we are all so appreciative that he has spent this time with us today. And now, well, you know, I just also want to add all these. There's so much to say about Dr. Jones, and if you need more information, Google it. There's more information you'll ever. It's all there. Okay, so I'm not going to spend the time telling you today, but if you want to learn more, Google Chris Jones. I'll just say that I've come to know him and that he's a very warm, great sense of humor, passionate, down-to-earth kind of guy that is a true gift to all of us and to Arkansas. And now I'll have one more reading, and then we'll hear from Dr. Jones. And these words are from Dr. Martin Luther King on the subject of science, religion. And by the way, Dr. Martin Luther King is also a graduate of Morehouse College. And he says, there may be a conflict between soft-minded religionists and tough-minded scientists, but not between science and religion. There's no conflict there. Their respective worlds are different, and their methods are dissimilar. Science investigates, religion interprets. Science gives man knowledge, which is power. Religion gives man wisdom, which is values. The two are not rivals. They are complementary. Martin Luther King. And now I'm very pleased to welcome the Reverend Dr. Chris Jones to the pulpit.
Well, it is an honor and a privilege to be here for many reasons. First off, you see me struggling to get it up, right?
Yeah, you and everybody else, so don't feel like a
There we go. All right. I didn't want to have to lean down. Thank you for who you are, and thank you for allowing me into this space. This is a special day. And I will say Debbie stole my sermon. So we can probably just stop now. You'll see what I mean in just a second. Today is the anniversary of Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech. So it is quite timely that you would use that quote and reference Dr. King. And when I think about the work that we are doing, when I think about the work that you all are doing through the church, I am uplifted and I am made more hopeful because you all are living out the charge that Dr. King gave us. So I want you all to look inward and give yourselves a thanks for that, because that matters. It matters a lot. He is why I was inspired to go to Morehouse College, because of his speech and because of his call to us to be one, and his call for us to seek something higher than ourselves. That is why I made that journey to what they call the Red Clay Hill in Georgia. And it was a transformative experience. So I am thankful to be in this reflective moment and to think about our place on the planet, our place in the universe, and having just witnessed the data from the James Webb Space Telescope, and having heard the sound that is emanating in space from a black hole. It reminds me of all that we've talked about today, that while we are but a speck, we are still significant. And our significance comes in our togetherness. So I'm thankful to be together with you all. And I'll start by saying that unity is a verb. Unity is a verb, and an action that describes the ability to connect ideas, thoughts, and people together. So the tragedy lies in the unimaginative space of fear. And when I think about the space that we heard about earlier today, folks tend to be afraid of that space. And they tend to be afraid because it's unknown. And they tend to be afraid because they feel like it will disconnect them from everything else. And a tactic that leans into a hopelessness, but I know what the scripture says. And in Isaiah 41:10, the scriptures say, "Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous hand." My name is Chris Jones, and my values, like many of you in this room, are rooted in faith, hope, and hard work. And Isaiah 41:10 tells me that I must keep the faith. I must not lose hope, and I must know that he gives me strength to do the hard work. That's what I get from King's speech and his acknowledgement. And I'll tell you, throughout my life, and I'll share a little bit about my life, and then I'm going to talk about this real question of science and religion, science and faith. And it was throughout my life that I was able to live out that notion of faith, hope, and hard work. And I heard it from my family who had been here for over 200 years. And they taught me those values. And I learned it at Morehouse College when I went and got a physics degree and a math degree. And part of what I learned in that moment, having gone to Morehouse, when I got there, I was naive, as most college students are. Unfortunately, as many adults are. When I got there, I thought that the world looked and should look like this. But what I learned was that the world looks and should look like this. And beyond that, I learned that there's so much of the world that I don't know and will never know. But it was those values of faith, hope, and hard work that drove me. And then they drove me to go on, as was mentioned, to MIT. What you may not know is that while I was being fueled by those values of faith, hope, and hard work, and fueled by this notion that I can stand on my faith and I can still operate and work in science. My wife was doing the same thing. She was raised in Alabama, but she went to college and got a biology degree. And then she went to Harvard Medical School and got a medical degree. And she's way smarter than me, by the way. Those of you who know her know that that's the truth. And it's that we want to instill in our daughters, that we have 3 daughters that are now 13, 9, and 6, and instill in them the principle that Dr. King talked about, the notion that he talked about, that they're actually complementary. And when we open our eyes and see the connection between the two, it opens up a whole new universe for us. And from a young age, I knew that I needed to be committed to that notion. But today I want to just briefly talk about and unpack this idea a little bit more. You know, King brought it together, but what we all know in our experience in our world is that folks frame science and religion as at odds with each other. And they framed it as at odds with each other for millennia. But they've been inextricably linked together since the beginning of time. Science and religion. Science and religion. When you all first met me, for those who didn't know, you probably heard this phrase that I used. And I said, to me, there's never been a conflict between science and faith. Never. We've been told that science disproves religion. That you can't be a scientist and a person of faith. That science requires you to engage your brain, and that religion requires you to leave your brain at the door. That's what we've been told. We've been told that religion trumps science. That only heartless robots put their trust in science. That science requires you to be selfish and self-centered. And that religion recognizes a power higher and greater than ourselves. That's what we've been told. Now, what I've experienced and what I know is different. I've walked the halls with some of the most brilliant scientists in the world. I've sat with Nobel laureates and had long conversations with them. The very folks who should be anti-religious. They should be. But it turns out they are the very folks who are most grounded in religion and faith. I've studied with religious leaders as an ordained minister, and I've studied under those who are 3rd, 4th, and 5th generation ministers. These folks should be anti-science. They should be. But it turns out they're some of the most brilliant and inquisitive scientific minds around. Because here's the truth. They agree on one critical truth, one central reality, that there is more that we don't know than there is that we know. There's more that we don't know than there is that we know. Science tells you that 99% of the universe is dark matter. We know nothing about it. Absolutely nothing about it. Religion tells you that God has infinite knowledge and we have finite knowledge. They're both saying, we just don't know. We just don't know. They all understand an important distinction between science and religion, and this is where you stole my sermon. Religion answers the question, why? And from that, we try to understand the question, for whom? Say it again. Religion answers the question why. And from that, we try to understand the question for whom. Science answers the question what. And from that, we try to understand the question how. Science answers the question what. And from that, we try to understand the question how. Herein lies the tension that we feel. We seek to force science to answer the question why. And we struggle with not having clarity on for whom. I'll say it again so you don't miss it. I'm an ordained minister too, so. We seek to force science to answer the question that religion answers. Why? And we struggle with not even knowing, with no clarity around the from whom. We feel that tension, and often we release that tension on each other. We feel it. It's balled up in us. We don't understand it. And in our lack of understanding, we take it out on each other. We seek to find what from our religious texts. And we go down a rabbit hole of how in our religious text. And we feel that tension, and we often release that tension on each other. And we're constantly releasing that tension on each other. But to me, the two are complementary. They provide answers to vastly different questions. Where we feel there is tension is quite possibly the juncture of our ignorance. The juncture of our ignorance. That space where we just don't know. And that's a space where most feel very uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable. But when I spoke with Nobel laureates, and when I sat under ordained ministers for generations, one of the things that I picked up was that they were at peace in that juncture. Knowing that there were some questions they had an answer to. Knowing they needed to ask the right questions of the right text. And being completely comfortable in the juncture of their ignorance. So, I'll leave you with this. Let us find peace in the juncture of our ignorance. Let us seek answers to the appropriate questions in the appropriate places. And let us do it together in unity, unified as one humanity. I love you all.
And now, if you will join me in your order of service with our closing words, saying together, go out into the world in peace, have courage, hold on to what is good, return to no person evil for evil, strengthen the faint-hearted, support the weak, help the suffering, honor all beings. And I invite Martha up to extinguish our chalice. And we extinguish our chalice with these words. Beneath all of our diversity, beneath all of our differences, there is a unity of spirit that makes us one and binds us forever together, in spite of time and death and the space between the stars. Thank you, everyone, for being here today, and I hope this service may brighten your heart until we are together again. Go now in peace.